What's that? Do they sting? These? Yes. Yes, very badly. Wasps of the genus Dolichovespula are distributed widely across the northern hemisphere. There are about 20 species worldwide and 6 species in North America. They establish eusocial colonies that typically construct an aerial nest made of paper. In this video, we will take a closer look at 3 species. Dolichovespula maculata and Dolichovespula arenaria create colonies consisting of 1 egg-laying queen, many female workers, and in the fall, males. Dolichovespula arctica is a social parasite of arenaria. The story of the American species of the genus begins in 1763 when Carroll Linneaus published Centuria insectorum, 100 insects. Among them were specimens acquired from the Pennsylvania territory via another Swedish naturalist named Charles de Geer. Linnaeus named the new wasp Vespa maculata. This is a queen. It is very stout, like a large bumblebee. It is black with numerous pale white markings. It ranges across much of North America. A closer look at its North American distribution indicates that where trees are scarce, this wasp is likewise scarce. This is a worker. Workers are smaller and sleeker than queens. This caste is composed of females who conduct all the foraging and nest-building activities. All the workers are sisters. They forage upon many other insects like grasshoppers, flies, and even yellowjackets. This is a male. It is roughly the same size as a worker with a smaller head and longer antenna. Males are born from unfertilized eggs laid by the queen. They provide little to no work for the colony but are essential in the fall to mate with the queens that will overwinter. As far as size goes, maculata is North America's largest native vespid. The queens are over 17 millimeters long, workers are about 14 millimeters, and males are about the same. All 3 are much larger than this worker honeybee. 13 years later, in 1775, Kiel, Germany, Johann Fabricius published his Genera Insectorum. In it, he described a North American wasp he called arenaria from the British collection of Sir Joseph Banks. Arenaria queens have the same plump appearance as maculata queens. Arenaria is found across the United States and southern Canada. Its bright yellow markings distinguish it from maculata's white markings, and in that respect it resembles the many wasps in the genus Vespula. This is a worker. Arenaria workers build aerial nests similar to maculata but smaller. Interestingly, their colonies tend to be larger in terms of colony members. Another unusual feature of this species is the behavior of the workers to spray their venom. Their diet consists of live insect prey like maculata, so they generally do not show up at picnics looking to scavenge. This is the male. Like maculata males, they provide little to no work for the colony, but they are essential to its future survival. The long antennae undoubtedly help guide them to fertile queens. As for their size, arenaria is not as large as maculata. The queens are still an impressive 12 to 14 millimeters long. Workers are roughly the same size as worker honeybees, and males, which tend to have long abdomens, tend to be a little bit longer than most workers. 141 years after Fabricius described arenaria, in 1916, Henry Viereck, with the help of others, compiled the list of all the hymenopterans thus far collected in the Connecticut area. One of his collaborators was Sievert Allen Rowher. Rowher, an entomologist at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, was in charge of the vespids. In his descriptions of vespid wasps, Rowher was the first to recognize the subgenus he named Dolichovespula and included 3 species. He used a difference in head morphology as the genus's defining characteristic. Dolichovespula has a considerable distance between their eyes and their mandibles, giving them the appearance of an elongated face, while the rest of the Vespula have shorter, broader faces. He also brought the previously described Vespula borealis into his new genus and renamed it Dolichovespula arctica. It was black and white like maculata, only a bit smaller, and it had more color on its abdomen. Dolichovespula arctica is an obligate parasite, meaning an egg-laying female, i.e. queen, will sting an arenaria queen to death and take over her nest and rear an arctica brood, with the help of the original queen's workers who are unaware of the takeover. This is the male. There are no arctica workers, just queens and males. As usual, the males have longer antennae. Arctica bodies are built for their difficult lifestyle. They have a thicker cuticle to prevent attacks from host stings. 15 years after Rowher's work, in 1931, the Belgian immigrant Joseph Hart, working at Harvard, revised the known Vespines of North America and helped to bring some structure to a group that had suffered many redescriptions of species. 50 years later, in 1981, Roger Acker from the University of Washington and his colleagues assembled Agricultural Handbook number 552. It was the book that made Vespines accessible to non-specialists. Yellowjackets of America north of Mexico had great illustrations and a very easy-to-use key to species. Only partially out of date, this is still a great resource. 27 years after Acker, in 2008, Matthias Buck from the University of Guelph in Ontario created the Identification Atlas of the Vespidae of the northeastern Nearctic region. It was very comprehensive in its treatment, despite its regional coverage, and lavish in its macro photography. Even if your specimens come from the West, this is still worth a look. Only 4 years later, in 2012, Lynn Kimsey from the University of California, Davis, and James Carpenter from the American Museum of Natural History published The Vespidae of North America. This work updated all the names and provided new keys. Any serious effort to identify your specimens requires this publication. When you look at your Vespid specimens, always keep in mind the various castes that exist and what time of the year your specimen was collected. Most specimens collected in the very early spring are queens. Those collected in midsummer are generally female workers. All three can be found in the fall, but the fall is the only time you will encounter males. Comparing the sizes of the queens, we see just how colossal maculata is. It reminds me of an orca in how it towers over its close relatives. These are the workers, and we see the workers reflect the same size differences that the queens do. Worker size varies considerably, though. Many small workers are produced. Of course, there are no arctica workers. Differentiating the three most common Dolichovespula species is easy, but the first step is making sure that you are looking at Dolichovespula and not a species in the genus Vespula. So the first thing to do is to observe the distance between the bottom of the eye and the start of the mandible. Dolichovespula has a considerable distance, and Vespula does not. If your specimen is indeed Dolichovespula, look at its color. If it is black and white, determine if the color extends to the upper tergites. The upper tergites of maculata are always completely black. If your specimen has yellow markings, you likely have arenaria, or another species not discussed here named Norvegicoides. Again, any real identification requires the aforementioned keys. They are all available online and more comprehensive in their treatment. Well, that should get you started. Good luck. As always, a special thanks go to the internet resources that make these videos possible, including the Biodiversity Heritage Library, Discover Life, and Iowa State University's Bug Guide. Look for them online. No. No, no, I don't hug them. No, but I do like to touch their leaves.